Welcome back to 3D Sportscast. This is episode 4.
Quattro.
Going into week 6.
Seven.
Or 7. Wow.
We missed a bunch of weeks.
That's right.
and
Time is going
we are
fast.
behind.
We'll talk about week 6. Hopefully not as long as we talked about week 5.
Yeah, we definitely went a little too
but-
far last week.
But
we
we're
were
going to talk
talking
about
forever.
week 6 a little bit, and then I'd make our predictions for week 7. So I guess we can just get into
We'll
it.
get right into our Thursday night game. Denver at Kansas City. Kansas City, that was way too close of a game.
They
for
did
them.
not look good. For some reason, as bad as Denver's been the last couple of years, they always play Kansas City close. And Kansas City won the game, but it was not a pretty game by any means.
It was way closer than you would want it to be if you're a Chiefs fan. Broncos fans probably weren't too upset. I mean, they didn't win, which I'm sure they're upset about, but it was the Chiefs. If they expected to win, I don't know why they would have done that.
I feel like most of the Chiefs games have been like that, though.
They haven't been
for
dominating.
real. The Chiefs have not looked like you would expect the Chiefs to look. I will say one thing about the Broncos this week. Pretty much every week, Russell Wilson has actually looked very good. And the one week that I think the Broncos actually they probably played their best game, other than their win, obviously.
Yeah.
But Russell Wilson did not look great. I don't even think he had.
No,
he didn't even
actually,
have 100 yards.
The Broncos' defense has been their weakness. I mean, they gave up 70 points to Miami.
That's rough.
They have not looked good. They actually played pretty decent this game, only holding the Chiefs to 19. But I agree, the offense, which in some ways, and Russell Wilson hasn't looked terrible considering
Russell
their
Wilson
record.
on the offense has looked good. Pretty much everything
true.
else is not.
But he did not look good this game. So it's just a lack of consistency for Denver, which is why they've been bad.
Yep, which probably goes back to their coaching not being great.
Yeah, it's weird because we blamed the coaching last year.
And then they changed.
And their new coach was blaming the coaches
Yeah.
last year, and they have not looked any better. So it's hard to say. It's just something's not working here
Top
with
to
this
bottom,
team.
the Broncos are bad.
And as we see in the headline, Taylor Swift watching
Oh,
again.
yeah. CBS Sports,
That's-
the headline on their game recap is Mahomes throws touchdown pass, which I don't know why that is.
I mean, okay.
Whatever, that's normal. And then Kelsey has big game with Swift watching again.
Is literally the CBS
That's
headline.
the headline for the recap.
And I know I talked about this a little bit before we got on, but it's just crazy. Like, I know Taylor Swift has obviously got a huge audience, and it's a money thing for the NFL for sure.
It is.
But it's crazy to me that, like, I don't know how it would go, but I feel like if you flip the roles and Taylor Swift had a concert and they were showing Kelsey, like, 20 times during her concert, like,
yeah,
first of all, I don't feel like, well, maybe the Swifties would be happy about that. I don't know how they'd feel. But I know football fans would not be wanting to tune in just to see Kelsey's face.
Yep.
But that's
it's
me.
like
I don't
you
know.
said, though,
It's
it's a money thing because you got to think about it, right? Football fans aren't going to stop watching football because of Taylor
exactly.
Swift.
Yeah.
But Taylor Swift fans will start watching football because
Which is
of
crazy
Taylor Swift.
because we all know what Taylor Swift looks like. She's just sitting there watching it, and they're just But hey,
Whatever.
I
don't know.
I guess it works. I mean, some people if they want to see
yeah.
Taylor Swift sit there and watch football like the rest of us, then whatever.
Yeah.
But
Other than that, there's not much really to
Yeah,
point
no,
out
I
about
mean,
this game. Nothing.
we figured Kansas City
Yeah.
would win this game.
Yeah,
Um,
Pacheco didn't have that good of a game for the Chiefs. He had a pretty good game last week, I believe. I have him on my fantasy team.
And actually, Kelsey did have one of his. Even though he didn't
did.
score a touchdown, other than that,
as a tight end, having
9
the
receptions
leading
for
yards in the
124
game.
yards. So that was a good game for Kelsey. But yeah, other than that, I mean,
Not
Chiefs
much to talk
win,
about.
and so yeah,
I believe we both picked the Chiefs.
we did. We got that. At least we started out better
We
than we did
started out
last week.
strong, yeah,
Although
last
it
week.
may get a little bad as we get into Sunday, but
Gets choppy.
we started off good Thursday night.
Yep. Okay, we'll move to the first game on Sunday.
Your team.
My team versus the Commanders versus the Falcons. I picked against my team and they won, so I'm going to continue to do that.
The 2 times he's picked against them, they lost to overtime to the Eagles, and they won
Yep,
this one.
and we
so
won this game.
Every time you've picked against them, they look good. We knew it was going to be a close game, came down
Yeah.
to the end, but great win for the Commanders. As you look at Sam Howell's stats, 3 touchdowns, no picks. He only had 151 yards, but
I actually watched this game, obviously being a Commanders fan, or at least most of the game. I didn't watch all of it. And Sam Howell, this was definitely, in my opinion, was probably one of the worst games this year that he's had, or on the worse side. It wasn't one of his better games.
Yeah.
But as far as touchdowns and interception goes, obviously 3 touchdowns, 0 picks.
And I think,
that's pretty good.
I think the worst game that he had was actually against the Bills.
I would agree. That was very bad. He got sacked like 11 times.
But a lot of that wasn't even his fault. It was he was under pressure, and then he started forcing
Yeah.
passes, and that looked bad.
Well,
but yeah,
And one thing I like to see as well with the Commanders, last week, it was either last week or the week before, Howell threw 51 pass attempts in a row before we had a run.
yeah.
He
Well, it
threw
was that. I know
51
last week was the
consecutive
game you
times.
guys lost to the Bears, and the Bears just started out hot, and you guys were down, so you start. But I agree. I think you need to give the ball to Robinson.
We have good running backs,
Yeah.
so we need to use.
And I understand, when you're a lot of times the strategy changes when you're down and you're trying to come back.
But still, 50
That's a
pass
lot of
attempts
that's a
in
lot
a
of-
row,
yeah, that's a lot.
consecutive, without being broke up. And this week, they were much better as far as run and pass game goes, because
But even-
Howell only threw 23 times.
But even this, you look at it, Robinson
Well,
only
we
had
have-
31 yards.
We could do.
You have a couple.
Yeah, so we have
true.
Gibson, Antonio Gibson, and Brian Robinson. We kind of do a back and forth with between the. Although this week it was really one sided. Robinson clearly had way more.
It's just the weird thing is you look at the stats and actually yard production, not a lot.
I don't even think we had 300 yards. We didn't even have 200 yards. We had 193 yards.
Yeah, so part of it is
I mean, man,
the turnover differential, I gotta say, because look, you got Desmond Ritter who 3 interceptions,
3 picks, yeah.
and that was
That'll kill you.
That's a big difference. Turnover battle, defense.
Well, that's
Obviously won that.
One thing about this game that was kind of neat was both of these QBs were unproven. They're both
True.
coming off of their best weeks of the year, and they're both second-year QBs who didn't start last year.
It's true.
So it was kind of neat to see that comparison. Now, Ritter did have a lot more yards as far as that goes, but if you're looking at efficiency-wise and things like that, Howell definitely played a better
Well,
game.
because
here.
Ritter threw 47 passes, a lot less than Howell, 2 touchdowns,
A lot
but then
more.
but then you got the 3 picks. So would you rather have an efficient Sam Howell with only 23 passes, 3 touchdowns, no picks? That's even though the yards aren't there, the turnovers were killer for Atlanta, and it looks like Washington was able to capitalize
The
on
thing that blew me away with this game was the difference in time of possession. The Commanders won 24-16, but they had the ball for 13 less minutes.
I mean, and they were 2 of 10 on third downs.
Like,
It's,
it wasn't exactly a pretty game by
no,
any means.
but a win's a win.
But a win's a win, and the Falcons didn't play great, and the Commanders played pretty decent
And I
game.
think you're going to see a theme throughout this week of teams that won not being pretty wins. I mean,
Yeah.
we just talked about the Chiefs,
sure.
the Commanders, and we're going to get into a couple other ones later. But it was a weird week of football and a lot of close games, but not a lot of pretty. There was not
Not a lot
one
of
great
blowouts.
performance that stood out. A lot of the games were not what we quite expected. As actually, the first game Sunday, I don't know why it has the Washington game first, because the first
'cause
game
that was
Sunday
not
was the game in
first,
London. Which was between Baltimore and Tennessee. And we talked about this a little bit coming off last week with Buffalo Jacksonville
Mm-hmm.
playing in London. How would this pan out? Because I believe the Ravens left earlier and the
Yep.
Titans left late. And my prediction was it's going to be a factor. Now, it was a close game again, but the Ravens did.
Yeah.
I believe you picked the Titans. I picked
I
the
did pick
Ravens.
the Titans to win because
So-
I thought Derrick Henry was going to play good.
I got this
and
one
I
right.
I don't think Derrick Henry played very well.
He had a he had a good
He actually
game.
did have a pretty good game.
97 yards, only on 12 attempts and a touchdown.
One of his runs was 60 yards,
Well,
so he
yeah.
only had 30
Yeah.
yards other than one play.
But I didn't actually really watch this game. I saw some of the highlights, but again, at least my theory as of right now is correct. If you leave on a 5-6 hour time difference to play overseas late, it's gonna be a factor. Now, obviously, I think I would have even if they played over here, I think I would have favored the Ravens in this game. Again, not a pretty game from either team, but Ravens able to get a win, and so we'll see how these last couple weeks factor into the future of the NFL playing overseas
Yeah,
and
as
how.
far as London goes,
Yeah.
things like that. I think they'll still try to push it because I think they want to open up the
I
market.
definitely
over
think
there,
they want to.
Which
It's
I
just-
think it makes sense as far as marketing thing goes.
yeah, go back kind of like the Taylor. It's just a
Yeah.
marketing thing.
It's to
But-
make money, which makes sense.
with
It
their
is a
business, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think just it's good. They're going to continue to do it. I just think strategically this may affect how they do it
Yeah.
in the future. You know what I'm saying?
And they do it differently.
Leave as early as you can.
Well,
Yeah,
and that's
right.
the thing too. If you're a team that's going to go over there, get over there as soon as you
Well,
can.
and,
That's for
and
sure.
the thing is, both times they've done this, the home team has been the one that gets there
late
later.
and
Which,
it's so
in my
weird.
opinion, doesn't make any sense.
Which
Why would you
actually-
not be the team that's there first?
Yes, which actually gives the
yeah.
away team more of
an
a home
advantage,
advantage.
because it's not a
'Cause they're more
home
acclimated.
game
Yeah.
for either team. So you would think the one that has more of an advantage, which being the team that's been there longer,
yeah.
would be the home team.
Well, then it makes them lose an actual home game.
Yeah,
That
it does.
too.
Yeah, because you only get a limited number per
So
season.
it's very strange. But either way, Ravens did win this game.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big game. I mean, you think about for playoff. If you look at the implications. If the Titans win this game, both teams are 3-3. Titans with the tiebreaker. Now Ravens win 4-2. Titans 2-2.
They're 2 games ahead of the
Yeah,
Titans,
and the
they
tiebreaker.
hold the
So
tiebreaker.
that's a huge game right there.
As long as both teams play up to what people are expecting them to, this game more than likely will have playoff implications.
Yeah, I believe. I don't know if I picked the Titans to be in the playoffs or not, but they're going to be a team that could be there, a fringe team, and I do believe the Ravens will be there. So, I don't think I picked the Titans, but I picked the Ravens as a wild card, right?
Yeah.
Which I picked the Bengals to win the division. Which that division right now, the AFC North is up in the air still. That's the
who
division
knows?
technically the AFC South, the Titans division too is as well.
a lot of divisions, right? It's early in the season.
It is still
so
early,
Really,
yeah.
the only things that we know for sure is that the was not the Lions. The Panthers suck. That's what we know for sure.
Yeah, the Lions I think right now have a good lead in their division, and the Chiefs, and there's a couple teams that are starting to
pull away or really fall behind.
But it's still early, so there's
It
a
is
lot of
early.
football left. But these games still have big
Yeah.
implications
Well,
looking back.
And this was another game. It was close. I mean, there was not really.
well, and also another thing that we didn't talk about is Tannehill left this game. I think it was an ankle injury. Or
It was
something.
towards the end.
Yeah, and Malik Willis came in. And you look, he only threw 5 passes and had just as many yards as
But his
Tannehill did.
efficiency was actually fairly good. He had a lot of sacks though.
So, and that's the thing what I know a lot of people talk about too is how long does Tannehill have? So at least you get a young QB, second-year QB, hasn't started yet in there, and he looked decent, but
It was a small sample size though,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
really
It's
hard
hard
to
to
say
tell.
how good he's going to be.
I know I know a lot of the Jaguars and Bills players last week were talking about the field, and I don't know if that had anything. I didn't know.
Yeah, the turf.
Yeah, and I don't know if that had anything to do with Tannehill getting injured or not.
I'm sure somebody will say it was.
Yeah, so I don't know, but either way, it was a close game.
Yep.
But the Ravens were able to pull it out, and so as of right now, I'm
the
ahead.
Ravens probably are a better team.
Yeah. And as of right now, I'm ahead of Dominic in the picks, but it's
That
not going
doesn't
to
take
last long.
much.
It's not
Yeah,
going to
I
last
think
long.
you did
no.
really bad.
I think
Spoiler alert, you end up tied.
we tied.
Do
but
we?
I think
Every
we
week.
picked 4,
Every week.
I think we picked 4 games differently and we split.
Huh.
And so that was the one
That
we
was
picked.
one, yeah.
But the next one, and
Didn't I pick the Bears? To
we both
upset?
and remember I said after we both picked the Bears that we were riding the Bears high of that win.
We
the week
were,
before.
we
I was
were.
like, watch, they're going to end up going back
But to
the
be
Bears.
fair, they didn't play a bad game.
Well, and what's weird is the Vikings have not looked good this year. They have Justin Jefferson out, and that's part of why I think we picked
them
at Chicago. They had a great week last week.
Because the best thing about the Vikings all year,
Has been
obviously Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, and Kirk Cousins
and
hasn't played
Kirk
terrible,
Cousins. Kirk Cousins has looked phenomenal.
and they just haven't found
They
ways
just
to win
haven't
games.
won.
And well, the thing that hurt Chicago too, which is weird because they actually kind of ended up looking better, but Justin Fields also got hurt in this game. I don't remember who even it was.
Who is that?
Baguette? Is that what he says?
Tyson Baggett?
Is he French?
He's a rookie. They
No,
just
I don't
must
know.
have just drafted him. Yeah.
No, he came in, and I remember looking at the score. Now, he didn't play fantastic either, but, like, I don't know. The Bears are just still the Bears,
Nobody
I guess.
threw a touchdown. They both
both threw a pick. Yeah.
Thing is, Fields has been looking good the last couple weeks until
The
he
thing
got
with
injured.
Fields is Fields has had moments where he looked good. He has not been consistently good, like a
The
Stroud
thing is,
or
it's
some of the
gotta
other
be
younger
it's
guys.
gotta be so hard to be good when
You have a team that's
the
like
team
that.
is
That's
that
true too.
bad.
Yeah.
Because if you
True.
can have moments where you look that good on a team as bad as the Bears,
Well, and this is where I go back to say, obviously Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback, but he's had a lot of help around him. Whereas,
they traded away. Obviously, one, he has Kelsey, who's phenomenal.
Yeah,
and he had Tyreek Hill.
He doesn't anymore, but
He
still,
doesn't have Hill anymore, but Hill definitely made his stats
Yeah,
better.
and that's what I'm saying.
Him along with Kelsey.
I think we give quarterbacks too much. Obviously, quarterbacks are a very important position, but I think we put so much on the quarterback and give them so much credit when they're good and so much, crap when the team is terrible.
Well,
Gotta.
That's where you can really tell the really good quarterbacks from the middle of the road quarterbacks. Because look at Tom Brady, for instance, where he went from team to team. Yeah, he had good quarterbacks along the way, like Edelman
Or receivers.
or receivers. Yeah,
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Yeah, you know what I meant. But either way, as soon as he left, look at Godwin.
Yeah.
He went from one of the best receivers in the league stat wise to kind of a middle of the road. Not now. I believe is he even playing anymore? How's he even?
No,
doing?
he is, but you don't. Yeah, you don't
That's
hear
the thing.
about.
You never even hear
I
about
mean,
it.
obviously the main receiver there in Tampa Bay is Mike Evans. He's been great throughout his career.
But Godwin was still though. He was still.
thing-
You were hearing like, man, he had a good game. I can't even tell you the last. Stat
Yeah, well, the thing
after
with
Brady
New
left.
England is they had obviously some guys, but at the same time they weren't anything. Like Edelman was a quarterback in college,
Yeah,
like he
Julian
wasn't.
Edelman. It's not like it's like, wow, he was.
I mean, you
of
had
all the
guys-
receivers, I'm gonna pick him. It's like
You had guys like Danny Amendola, Wes Welker, Chris Hogan, who I believe he played for Buffalo a little bit too, but I believe he was like a lacrosse player in college. Like just some guys that had some athleticism, but they were able to mold those guys. And now you see New England, which we'll get to, since Brady's left, they have just not
been good.
We'll talk about that in a moment, but that does show just how great Brady
I
was.
think a lot of people put like Brady's credit on Belichick too, but
At this point,
yeah.
he
Well,
let-
the fact that Brady left in his first year, won a Super Bowl in Tampa, and the Patriots didn't make it to the wild card that one season since he left, but they
Yeah.
got blown out by the Bills, and since then they've been terrible.
horrible,
So
not good for him.
yeah, but either way, back to this game, Vikings gotta
Yeah,
win.
What we were talking about.
But not a great. I don't know. This was a weird week. It's hard to predict what's happening. Now Jordan Addison is a rookie receiver. He scored a touchdown, only 3 receptions, 28 yards. But someone's got to fill in for Justin Jefferson being out.
That's how you know this game was not great, because the two leading receivers were Addison, who had 28 yards. Moore is obviously good for the Bears, but he had 51
well, if
yards.
you look compared to what Moore did last week, this was
Yeah.
terrible. I mean, Moore had 200 some yards and 3 touchdowns.
He had 50
So,
yards, no touchdowns.
Yeah, on 5 receptions. So it just shows week to week in the NFL. It's hard to predict, and you never know what you're gonna
You
get.
never know.
And so, I mean, I would say going into this game, the Vikings are the better team, but we both were riding that Bears high, and
I think a combination of Fields getting injured. Honestly, the game probably would have been different had Fields stayed in, but we don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
And in this one, it's just the Vikings outplayed the Bears, which is funny that we're having this conversation. I would hope so.
yeah. Well, and
because the Bears
it's
aren't
good for the
but
Vikings though, because they
needed a win.
a win
Because we keep talking about how the Vikings, we've said it for a couple weeks now, the Vikings are better than their record. This did not help them.
No,
It helped
no.
their record, but it didn't make them look good.
well, and I don't remember if I picked the Vikings as a playoff team or not.
I think I
but I
did.
think I did.
I think I picked both of these teams to be in the playoffs.
Drew, you picked the Vikings as a wild card, and yeah, you did.
You picked,
No.
but you did
I
pick the
picked the
Bears as a wild
Bears.
card. So yeah.
Yeah, you're-
Either way,
That's fine.
those are probably two of our worst
Worst picks so far.
picks for the playoffs early, after week 1 of the season we did that. But Vikings got a must-win game.
It was definitely a must-win, and they, unfortunately for them, they barely
they
squeaked it
won,
out.
but yeah. So
It was not as big of a margin as they would have hoped.
next one, Cincinnati, Seattle. I believe this was another game we picked different.
Yeah.
I picked Seattle and you picked
The
Cincinnati.
Bengals.
So Cincinnati does win, but it came. If you watched it, it came down to the very
It
end too.
was, and Burrow had another
And not a great
horrible
game. Oh, and Geno Smith had not a great game. I mean,
Well,
yards-wise,
but he had 2 picks.
2 picks, and that hurt Seattle big time. Now, they did have a chance there at the end to score, but
I think another thing that the Bengals, it's not just a lot of people, and even I said it a little bit, that the problem has been Joe Burrow, but it not only Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon has not been doing well this
No.
year either. And normally he's pretty explosive. He isn't. Jamar Chase has been doing pretty good though, but the problem is when you can't get him the ball because your quarterback's not doing well.
Yeah,
The Bengals still just have not looked like a good team.
and
at
actually,
all.
they did not look good this game, and their defense is what helped them win this game because it was still not like a typical what we've got accustomed to
Yeah.
with the Bengals the last couple of
No,
years.
the explosive offense and the pound out the gate like they're just
Yeah.
on fire immediately. They just have not looked good.
Now, mind you, Seattle was 3-1 coming this game, coming off a bye. So considering you got the win, that's still a good win.
Yeah, the Seahawks definitely aren't a bad team by
No.
any means. I mean, we've seen what Geno Smith did last year.
Kenneth Walker, I believe, is one of the most underrated young running backs,
Oh,
up and coming
for
running
sure,
backs
for
in the
sure.
league. And you got a great receiving core. You got Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith, and Jigba as a rookie coming in.
He's been doing pretty good
Yeah,
this year.
and so you got really a great team. I mean, not a great team, but
it's a good team.
and definitely
A
an
good-
underrated
yeah,
team, I think, for sure.
for
I mean,
sure.
playoff team last year.
I do think they overpaid Geno Smith a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it was 1 year.
Well, and
we've seen
there's been a couple-
We've
there's-
seen a lot of one-hit wonders.
Yeah, there's
in
been a
the
couple
NFL.
quarterbacks that I think have been a bit overpaid. We'll get to some more in a little
Way
bit.
more
but
overpaid quarterbacks.
I'll get to one.
Patriots.
Daniel Jones.
Oh yeah. I don't keep thinking Mac Jones. It's
well,
Daniel Jones.
Mac Jones too.
Well, he overpaid as well.
yeah.
But
But he didn't just get a big contract like Daniel Jones got.
Daniel
But that's
Jones got
we'll,
an insane.
We'll get
anyway.
to that in a little bit. But
Yeah.
a good win, I guess, for
It
Cincinnati.
was
considering
definitely another must-win game
considering it wasn't a pretty game, you found a way to win. And I think, like I said
against
at the beginning,
a not bad Seahawks team
Yeah,
either. It's
and like
not
I
like
s-
they played something like the Browns.
well, but the Browns. Well,
Or
we'll get
what
to that.
I said Browns. I meant Bears.
Oh, Bears, yeah. But that's the thing is, like I said in the beginning, most of these games, they were not pretty games.
No.
It was just not really one performance that was great this weekend. It was strange. It just goes to show, like I said, how it's very unpredictable in the NFL. And
That
I mean,
it definitely is.
as
Well, speaking
of
of
the Browns,
unpredictable and the Browns,
so I watched this game up until the NFL decided to not show the last minute and a half.
I missed field goal.
So literally,
a very important part.
that's one of my my little rants I'm gonna go on today. Is that first of all, this was a great game for the
Yeah,
Browns,
and we both got it wrong. We
And the
both
funny thing
picked
is,
the
me
Niners.
and my dad were talking right before this game, saying, and how I've said on here the last couple weeks, how we did not see anyone beating the 49ers. The only way is if they start getting injured. Well, Debo Samuel was at, I don't know if I don't think it's anything serious, but he left the game.
Yep.
McCaffrey left the game. And Trent Williams, one of their best offensive linemen, left the game. So 3 of their key offensive guys left, and that
Bad.
definitely
That definitely affected them.
affected them. And Brock Purdy did not play great either.
My favorite thing I seen about this game was the Niners kicker, who definitely, I mean,
He's a rookie, I believe,
I
too.
don't want to be mean to the guy, but they lost the game because of him.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
he's
if
a
he
rookie
would've-
kicker, but
he
also,
missed extra points. How do you do that?
I don't know, did he miss an extra point?
I-
2 field goals.
He missed 2 field
Oh yeah,
goals, I
field
believe.
goals.
But
he may not have missed.
if you
any extra points.
Cleveland Stadium is right there on Lake Erie, you get the wind. It's not the easiest place to kick in the
No.
Cleveland elements, but still, you get paid. You got to make those, and obviously you're not going to be perfect, but that's a tough loss for San Francisco. Although I think they needed a little bit of adversity because even though it was hard to see anyone beating them, it's hard to go undefeated and win
It
every
is.
game,
It is.
especially
There's a
when
reason that
in-
the teams that do that.
yeah,
are
and especially
insane.
in football, injuries happen. So this could, in the long run, be a good thing for the 49ers. It's not going to hurt them that much, obviously.
Yeah, because now they have a loss on their record already, so it's not like they're
pressure's a
going to
little
be
bit-
under
yeah,
that pressure.
the pressure's
to, hey,
off.
we have to win every game.
But it coming to Cleveland was a little bit of a surprise, especially a Cleveland team without Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Without, obviously, Nick Chubb out for the year.
I mean, this was one of the biggest spreads of the week at 9.5.
But Cleveland's defense is a very good defense, too.
They are underrated.
Yes.
I will say. I think Cleveland has one of the better defenses this year. I believe they have one of the best as far as statistics go.
Yeah, so again, you get San Francisco banged up on offense a little bit. Cleveland's defense took advantage of that. And, P.J. Walker, the quarterback who came in for Deshaun Watson, he didn't play great. He had the one interception, especially that was bad. He had 2 picks total in the game. But he was more of a game manager. Now, we've seen P.J. Walker, I believe, was an XFL guy a couple years ago. Came in, I believe he played for Carolina last year. He's got, again, this wasn't a fantastic game, but he did, even though he made a couple mistakes,
as far as backups go, he's pretty good.
And he did what he had to do to help his team win.
Yep.
And so that's big. But the NFL, I don't know what they're doing, though, switching off of this game.
That was dumb. I don't know if that was an NFL call or a network
I think
call.
I think it's some rule. I don't know what the rule is about, like, if it goes a certain amount of time or there's the game upcoming.
It's got to be a network thing.
But
like that's just the
But
network
the thing
policy.
is the games that were starting were the Eagles-Jets game, which was
But when you have a game this close and it's what is considered the best team in the NFL against a team that is like a middle pack team, and they cut away from it at the last second when there was what would have been a game.
I don't care what game it is. The beginning of a game, even though we want to watch, most football fans want to watch the entire of the game. End of a game like this is way more important to watch than the beginning of any other game. And so,
the thing is, they cut away before that final field goal.
Yeah,
if he would have made that field goal, the Niners would have won.
Yeah, we missed all that. It was literally we got to see like the first play or two of that last drive, and then we missed all the rest.
I don't know.
I don't know. And
it was a questionable decision,
it's weird because
I don't understand it.
I was upset, and I'm not even a fan of either of these teams, but it was just such a one of those instances you want to see. And if I was, say, a Browns fan, I would be even more. I mean, think about like that's going to be their. I'm sorry, but that's going to be their biggest win probably all year.
The Browns are local.
Yeah, well, I mean, we live in Ohio.
Yeah, we're
so
like
they're a local team. I mean,
a couple hours away from the Browns.
So, it's like,
so there's a lot of people around here that I bet were mad. I mean, I was mad, not even as a Browns. And I know we just talked a little bit about Taylor Swift, but they show her so much, but they can't even show the end.
They don't have time to leave it on the Browns game, but they got time to show Taylor Swift.
So NFL, I don't know what that was,
decisions.
but obviously we were able to see. Well, the other thing is when they switched the games, they're like, oh, we'll keep you updated. It wasn't until the end, like the end of the first quarter of the next game. Oh, by the way, they missed the field goal, and the Browns did win.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my little rant of the week.
One of my second rant.
Well, true.
But the 49ers kicker had, since he's a rookie, we just talked about that. He brought his entire family and all his friends from his hometown. I saw that. And then he had the worst night of his career. Like
missed
even
2 field goals
college.
and missed the game.
Yeah. Missed a game-winning field goal.
And Purdy, fine. Although I will say this, even though he didn't play great, but his offense, as I mentioned, was beat up. He still gave his team a chance to win there in that last drive. But officially, he has his first loss of his career that he does not get hurt in and have to leave. So
luckily, it was a middle of the season game.
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was going to come eventually, but
we know the Niners are still going to make the playoffs, and the
for
Browns,
sure,
it's not going to affect them much.
Well,
it may affect the Browns, but as far as 49ers go, this game's not going to ruin their season.
Yeah, true.
They're still making the playoffs.
And as far as the Browns go, I actually think this was bigger for the Browns than it was the 49ers.
Yeah, it was a bigger plus for the Browns than it was a negative for the Niners.
Actually, in some ways, it may be good for the 49ers, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, it gets that pressure off their shoulder. There's no more, hey, they're going to go undefeated. There's none of that. It's just, okay, now they're just playing football.
And it's like, from a coaching standpoint, it's like, okay, this is how things go. We're not going to be perfect. We need to have a little bit of adversity. And how we're going to respond from that next week, we'll see. But as far as the Browns, another one of those fringe playoff teams. So a win here in a game that a lot of people said they wouldn't win.
Yeah, the Browns, we both said they weren't going to win.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Most people, I don't think.
Yeah, no, if you would have told me that the Browns were going to upset the Niners, I would have said you're funny.
And so
it turned out that's what happened.
I mean, and they're right there in the mix.
3-2, they're a wild. I believe they would because they had a bye, so they technically have a better win.
But I mean, the Ravens are, I believe, leading that division at 4-2. I believe the
Browns
Steelers
are definitely still in there.
The Steelers, I believe, are also 3-2 because they had a bye, and 3-3 are the Bengals. So that's a close race right there in that division, and the Browns are right there in the mix. So with that win. And now we're gonna go to Houston.
Where I made
And
the
New
greatest
Orleans.
prediction.
If you watched last week, he made a prediction that
I said Stroud was going to throw his first pick, and I said it was going to be in the first half, but I said the Texans were still going to win, and they did.
And they
All
did.
of that came true.
Great prediction. Obviously, we knew C.J. Stroud's interception was going to come eventually. But the fact that it wasn't an interception that
It
really hurt
didn't
them.
matter because he threw the pick six, or the pick, not a pick six. He threw
Yeah.
the pick, and then the guy who intercepted it fumbled it, and they got it back.
So
Because if you look at the play-by-play, right here, it was an interception. It was, okay, let's see. It was intended for Schultz. Bond, I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
The 45
Zach
took it 10 yards and then fumbled it, and then Houston recovered it. And then they wound up getting a touchdown on the
a
play.
couple plays later. So yeah. Well, and this was an interesting game. I know you picked Houston. I picked New Orleans, but Houston's looked good for a young team. Obviously, Stroud's looked good, but like I'm still not 100% sure what I'm going to get out of them. But the same with New Orleans. But New Orleans came off. Obviously, New England's terrible, but they obliterated New England the week
They
before.
did. Like, absolutely.
Like 34 to
obliterated them.
nothing. So I'm like, okay. Houston being a young team, New Orleans I think is a more veteran, experienced team off of
Yeah.
a win like that. That's part of why I picked New Orleans. But it was a close game. But
I definitely expected the Saints to be better at this point in the season.
Yeah.
Derek Carr is not. He had yardage wise, he did really good this game.
threw
but
50
I've
passes, though.
expected. Yeah, I mean when you throw that many
Yeah.
passes, you ought to have quite a few yards. I expected Derek Carr to play a whole lot better this year. Being on a team like the Saints, where he's got some more weapons than he did when he was in Vegas. And their offense for the Saints has not been, other than the Patriots, they really
Yeah.
did look very good.
But a lot of that was
The-
just because they had such great field position the whole game because their
whole
defense.
game.
you
Yeah,
know,
their defense was playing really well.
Was
And
that
it
their
was
defense
against
or
the
New England's
Patriots.
offense
Yeah,
is just that bad?
that's
but,
the thing.
Yeah.
But the Saints have not been nearly as dominant on the offense as I thought they would be
Yeah.
coming into the year. And this is just another game that goes to show that.
Well, and I had the Saints win in that division. Obviously, they play in one of the weaker divisions in the NFL, but yeah, they have not. I mean, 3-3 is not terrible, but it's not anything
Yeah.
great.
I mean,
It's
at
just-
this point, it's hard to tell where they're going to be
Yeah.
because it's just too early.
But-
But I was expecting them to be a lot.
But I will
more
say too
offensive.
is that Houston overall has looked a lot better than I
They've
think a lot
looked
of people have
phenomenal.
expected.
I'll say before the season, I was expecting Houston to be, bottom of the pack. I was expecting them to get probably another, top 8 pick.
Yeah.
And at the rate that they're going, they're going to have a
Well,
bottom 15
I knew they'd
pick.
be better. They made some moves. They obviously got Stroud, and they made some other offseason acquisitions
think
and free
anyone
agency.
expected
but this
Stroud
good,
to be as good as he
well,
is, which helps a
Stroud
lot.
playing this good so early in his career, but then also just even though they got some pieces, wasn't enough, and were they going to really put it together that quickly and gel that well? So far, I mean, to be 3-3 in the first 6 games for Houston, that's
Especially coming off of all the drama that they had
Yeah.
the past couple of years, to come back and be this good. Not really this good, but
better. I mean, better than we thought.
Yeah, way better than everybody thought, and to have a good young core. And they still have some pretty good picks, I believe, coming up next year. I think they trade, I believe.
Yeah,
or something like
probably.
that.
I'm not 100% sure on that. But they also don't play. I mean, they have Jacksonville in their division, Indianapolis, who now Anthony Richardson's out for the
Yeah.
year.
I mean, they definitely have an opportunity. They very well could be a playoff team this year.
Yeah, they could. They still have a shot.
Yeah.
So, I think Jacksonville's going to win that division. But
I'd have to still agree with that.
they could still even be a walk. I mean, you never know. It's
You
still
really
early.
don't.
But they're surprising to people. And at 3-3 at this part of the year, they've given themselves a shot. And again, the way Stroud's playing as a rookie,
They're looking good, man.
Good
Best Buckeye QB as a rookie ever, probably.
yeah, I saw. Did you see the meme last week of the 49ers quarterbacks where it was the Darvin Wimpy kid? All the kids
that
singing.
was
It was Brock
Purdy,
Purdy.
yeah.
I saw the same one for Ohio State quarterbacks in
Going
the
to the
NFL,
NFL.
and it was Stroud.
Yeah, I don't know if you're. Yeah, that's so funny.
But yeah, no. Stroud's looked great, but I can't believe how good that prediction you made last week.
I knew it was perfect.
It was
I mean,
a great
literally.
prediction. So
right when I got the notification that he did it, I was like, "Oh, there's no way!" And then I posted that on Facebook and tagged you in it.
But yeah, Houston gets a win. And,
good for them, man.
And speaking of Anthony Richardson and Jacksonville, we go stay in that division, the
next
AFC
game.
South, as the Jaguars beat the Colts, and they
They beat
the Jaguars are a good team. I mean, I know they beat us last week, the Bills last week in London, but they came back home and in a divisional game, and they looked pretty good.
They did look very good. I believe we both picked.
We both picked Jacksonville
to win this game. Obviously, we just talked about that. Colts down. Richardson, they're throwing Minshew.
And Gardner Minshew, former Jacksonville Jaguar, he
He's-
threw 55 passes, 3 interceptions.
The thing is, Minshew is a lot better than he played.
Yeah,
he threw a
yeah.
lot of picks. I think it doesn't help that he hasn't played in so long.
I don't know. I think he has stepped in a couple times in and out so far
Mm-hmm.
this year, but I think he's another one of those backup QBs that's I think a good for a backup.
Yeah,
he's
but
going to
as
be
far as-
serviceable. This was just not a good game for him.
No, he just did not throw the ball.
Another
well at
thing
all.
with the Colts is you got Jonathan Taylor back, but they haven't really used him a lot yet. Zach Moss still getting the majority of the carries.
Yeah.
That's another thing. We'll see how that
They're
plays
not-
out.
Well, he only had 7 attempts. He may just have led yards. Because
Yeah.
they ran Taylor more. Taylor just was not efficient.
No.
2.4 yards per carry is bad.
They just didn't run the ball good at all. Zach Moss
For him.
did find the end zone once, but
Yeah, but at 3 yards per carry, no
it's not
one
good.
ran the ball good.
Um,
Their receivers played a whole lot better though.
you got Michael Pitt. He didn't get a
Yeah,
touchdown.
you had 3
but
receivers who averaged 11 yards over 10 yards per carry. So
I think the thing that hurt them is they didn't run the ball good, and
When
they
you-
turned the ball over.
yeah,
And Jacksonville, again, to give them credit, they are a good team. I mean,
for sure. Trevor Lawrence played an okay game.
it was ETN. I mean, he had only 55 on the ground, but 2 touchdowns, and yeah, they had 2 passing. Lawrence had 2 passing touchdowns as
Yeah.
well. So, I don't know. Jacksonville is not. Again, they're not like the best team in the league by any means, but
they're
they are
still
a team.
a very young team.
Yeah,
though.
and they're a
That's the
team
thing.
that they compete against the best in the
They
league.
do.
And so,
I think here the Jaguars are going to continue to get better over time. They're not going to get worse. They're still young. They're going to be a good team for quite a few years yet.
I agree. I think they're a good team.
Whereas
and,
the Colts are definitely in a much earlier stage of the
well, they're
rebuild
definitely
than the
rebuilding.
Jaguars.
Yeah. Was the Jaguars? It was
The
just a
Jaguars
couple
are
years.
probably out of their rebuild
Yeah, because it was
stage.
just a couple years ago where the Jaguars were in that.
Yeah, and the Colts are probably in that right at the moment. They're in the thick of the rebuild.
And really, the sad thing for Colts fans is they've kind of been
They've
in
been
that
there a
since
while.
Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
Since Andrew Luck
Decided to
retired.
retire in like his prime.
So tough for Colts fans, but either way, the Jaguars are looking.
They look good.
Looking
They're looking
good.
like a good team.
And so
I think didn't we both pick the Jaguars to win their division?
I believe so. I know I did. Yeah. So that's looking like a good pick right now.
Yeah.
As now next game, Carolina, Miami. Carolina.
They're one of the worst teams in the league.
The weird thing is this was actually not a bad game. They were up 14-0 at the end of the first in
Yeah.
this game, and then Miami said, "Not so fast." We're
Yeah,
the
they're like,
Dolphins.
oh wait, we forgot, and then they played like they normally do.
So Carolina, I think, is now they're not good. They're young. They're another one of those young rebuilding teams. But
Yeah.
I think they've played better than a 0-6 team. They just can't. They're young and inexperienced and have not found that win yet. But again, the Dolphins, at least offensively, one of the better teams in the league, and they showed it again.
Honestly, I think the
Especially without
Dolphins.
Yeah, Devin H.
Yeah.
and their rookie running back who's looked good is out for a couple weeks now. But
I'm gonna say the Dolphins probably have the best offense in
they
the
do.
NFL.
The thing that's holding them
Which-
back is their defense.
Yeah, it would definitely. Their defense definitely needs to step up. Not that they're not winning
Yeah,
games
yeah.
because of them, but compared to the offense, they're not as good. I think this is probably the first time in a couple years that we can say the Chiefs don't have the best offense in the league.
I agree. I think the Dolphins, and what's funny is that their only loss was to the Bills in Buffalo, where they did not look good.
They didn't look good at all.
But other than that,
They have not really. There's not been many holes in the Dolphins game.
It's funny 'cause-
I mean they had that absolute blowout win against the Broncos.
it's just funny
mean-
how some of these teams can look great and they have their certain teams that they have a tough time with. Whereas
Yeah.
for the Dolphins, it's the Bills. For the Bills, it's been the Jets. Like we talked about for the Bengals, it's been the Browns. There's just those
Yeah.
divisional teams.
Yeah, or like the Eagles with the Commanders. I mean,
Yeah,
look at
I
last
mean,
year. They had their
exactly.
streak. They lost it. It's just how
And
it
they
is.
barely won the first game this
Barely
year in
beat us,
overtime.
yeah.
So those divisional games are always tough. But outside of that Bills loss, the Dolphins
They've looked phenomenal.
have looked great.
They've definitely looked like a top 5 team in the NFL.
And the fact that Tua stayed healthy has been a big part of the success,
yeah,
which
because
they didn't have last year.
I predicted that he was going to be injured in like week 4.
Now we did predict that, and then it was last week when they played the Giants. I said, if it's not Tua, it's going to be Daniel Jones. Which
which
it did end up
it
being.
was.
We'll get to that in a little bit more about the Giants. But as far as the Dolphins, yeah, Tua stayed healthy. Now they have had some injuries. I remember, I think Waddle missed a game or two. I think that game where they scored 70, Waddle wasn't even playing. Now Achane
Probably like
is
100.
out, but it doesn't. I mean, you got Tyreek Hill. Mostert's been a great back. Tagovailoa's been efficient, and they're just a
He's
good.
definitely played better this year than I personally ever expected him to play. Just because I mean, most quarterbacks like him that have the success that he did in college don't translate well to the NFL. And as of right now, he's actually translated extremely well.
And what's really interesting is one of the game matchups I do know that's coming up this next week, which we'll predict in a little bit, is the Dolphins play the Eagles. So not only those two great teams, so that'll be an interesting matchup, but going back to college, Hurts versus Tua, Tua came in for Hurts in college.
Won for him.
And so, and Hurts ended up having to transfer
his
to
job.
Oklahoma. Yeah, so that'll be interesting, but
That
we'll
will
get to
be.
that in a little bit. But the Dolphins have
Yeah. It was one of the best
looked-
teams in the league
looked good.
versus one of the
So,
worst. So.
I hate to say that as a Bills fan, but they have looked good. Obviously, we got their one loss, but another great win for the Dolphins. And speaking of divisional opponent for the Bills, who has not looked good,
the Patriots.
the Patriots have looked atrocious.
They have. Mac Jones has not looked good.
And that's who we play. The Bills play this next week is the Patriots. So, it's just not been a good start for New England. I think the biggest problem is their defense is actually not terrible, but their offense. Mac Jones has not been great, but they have no weapon. They just have no weapons.
There's no one on the team who's like, I mean, that guy's really good at his position.
Just
There's not a
offensively,
single
they
one.
have just got no.
Mac Jones hasn't been good.
No one.
They don't have really any good receivers. I mean, what do they? Who all do they even have on their roster?
I believe they have Smith-Schuster's probably the best receiver I know, and he
But
was
the
out
thing
this
is,
game
he
too.
was out this game, and he really hasn't been good since that one season with the Steelers.
No, and I mean he was on Kansas City last year, but that's a little bit different.
Yeah, when you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league
Yeah.
thrown to you.
They
They just don't really have anyone, and until the Patriots can either draft more players, or recruit them in
you
free
look at-
agency.
Kendrick Bourne is probably the top receiver. Who, I mean, Mike Gesicki.
How good is that? I mean,
Yeah, Mike
Kendrick Bourne.
Gesicki is a good tight end, but he's not. They are not getting. I mean, he's not.
They're not
doing
getting the
anything
ball enough. I
special.
think he's had a pretty decent year this year, though.
Well,
Yeah, 20 targets, 15 receptions.
If I remember,
mean,
Gesicki was in Miami last year, and I believe he got used a lot more and a lot better than New England. He's just
Yeah.
not been.
I definitely.
I don't know.
The Patriots have underperformed this year 100%. I think everybody expected them to be better than their record at this point. And the Raiders have actually looked better than most people. I
You picked them
picked
as a
them
wild
as a
card
wild
team.
card, which right now doesn't look
Well,
that outlandish.
The thing is they started the season really bad, but now they've won their last two, coming back to 3-3.
Mm-hmm.
You got a shot.
They definitely have a shot. It's a long shot.
Yeah,
But it's a shot.
But Jimmy Garoppolo
he has not been playing nearly as
not
good as I
great,
expected.
but he's also a veteran guy who he's been there.
Mm-hmm.
You got Josh Jacobs who hasn't played up. Really, they have talent. They just haven't not crazy talent, but they have
enough to at least make the playoffs, but it's just not clicking. They're all
again, Jacoby Myers, their leading receiver, which is strange because you got also Devontae Adams there.
Yeah, I feel like I'd be throwing to him more, but wish they could have this game.
Yeah, it's just been strange. But hey, the Raiders
3-3.
3-3. They got another win. So
I remember after week 2, my pick of the Raiders going to the wild card looked stupid,
and now it's looking a little bit better.
Pretty
I mean, it's still a long
reasonable.
shot, but it could.
Yeah.
And the other thing is at least you lost New England, but at least you didn't lose to the Raiders like you did last year and have a crazy lateral across
Yeah.
the field that gets taken back in the
was-
last play of the game. So
was
there's a win,
embarrassing.
New England fans. You didn't lose that
You
way.
didn't lose in some crazy outlandish fashion.
you just lost because you're the worst team.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah, you're definitely just not the better team.
So next game, Detroit at Tampa Bay, and
Didn't I pick Tampa?
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
so that was the
picked
game I
Tampa.
picked, right? Because I picked Detroit.
That was a mistake.
Both were one-loss teams going into this game, but Detroit, they have looked keep
They've
looking
just
great.
looked so good. 5-1. If you would have told me at the beginning of the season that they were going to be 5-1 after 6 games, I would
Well,
not have believed you.
I picked Detroit to win their division, but I still don't think I would
5-1
think they're
though?
5-1 at this point. And think about it, they're tied with Miami, with Kansas City, with the Eagles, and with the 49ers now, with the best
Yeah.
record in the NFL.
Well, again, you're like if you're looking at all the teams in the league, in my opinion, at this point,
Those are the
just
best.
looking at the
Yeah.
season, those are the top 5 teams in the league.
And Detroit's right
And they're
there.
right there.
And it's good for you, Detroit. I mean,
They turned it around quick.
they did, and obviously they had made that trade, trading Stafford for
It's
Goff.
working out for
But
them. I mean,
they had all those picks, and they've turned those picks in those last couple of years immediately into great
talk
production
about a quick rebuild.
and success, and it's worked out. I mean, it worked out for the Rams too. They got their Super Bowl, and now Detroit is seeing the benefits
It's looking
of
like
that trade.
Detroit's best pick was probably Laporte
Oh yeah,
their
Laporta.
tight end?
He is. What did he?
or Laporta. Yeah,
What did he do?
I don't think he played much.
He didn't even have a great
Yeah.
game this week. I mean, he had only 4 receptions for 36 yards, but overall,
But I mean, if you look at how his production all year, like, I
That's
mean,
like
he's
his
been
worst-
averaging double digits
That-
every game.
this
except
literally
for
was his
this one.
worst
It was
game.
his worst all year.
Gibbs is a rookie too, right?
I believe.
Jameer
so.
Gibbs, yeah, he's a running back. What did he do? He didn't play.
He
this
didn't play. He
He's
must have
been
been
he's
out.
been out.
Oh, that's right.
But David Montgomery was a huge signing. He came from Chicago. St. Brown still good. They got Jamal. Oh, is it Jamal or is it Williams? What's his name?
Jameson Williams.
The former Buckeye / Alabama player who he didn't play all last year because he came back from injury. I believe this year he was suspended for the first part of the season. So he's back looking good. He's a second year player as well.
yeah,
So
I mean, he's looking good. Honestly, Detroit, if they're playing this good now, I'd be scared to play him next year or the
yeah,
year
and you
after.
look at their division. Green Bay is not the typical Green Bay. Chicago, we talked about how bad they've been,
Yep.
and Minnesota's not been good. So at 5-1,
They are far and away. They're
they're-
right now going to win that division.
easy as far. I mean, anything can happen, but as far as right now, it's
Yep.
looking like they got a comfortable lead in that division
For sure.
And you win your division, you're in the playoffs. So
Yeah.
Detroit's a playoff team now. What they're gonna get there now? What are they gonna be able to do against, like, say,
I mean,
San
as of
Francisco
right
or
now,
Philadelphia?
They've beat
Well, they won
some
this
good
week and other
teams.
teams too.
But they
They
beat the
beat the
Chiefs.
Chiefs,
The only
man.
loss was to the Seahawks in overtime, and I don't believe they touched the ball in overtime that game. So
And the thing is, not the Seahawks aren't really a bad team anyway either.
no, and the Seahawks are good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
so
the Falcons, everybody
now
else.
they got the
like,
Ravens this next week. It'd be an interesting game.
Ravens,
But then you got the Raiders.
Yeah,
I mean, you got some interesting games in there.
They
But
play. The thing is, they've got going for them. They're playing the Bears twice. That's two.
well, okay, but
I
after
mean,
the Chargers game, you got the Bears, Packers, Saints, Bears, Broncos, Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings. I mean,
that's a pretty easy second half.
I think they. I mean, they may walk away with only 3-4 losses.
Yeah.
You know.
Which is way better than I think anybody expected them to do.
So
And then onto the other side of this game, Tampa Bay.
they wore their creamsicle throwback jerseys, and I'm sorry, every time they wear those jerseys, they are
awful.
terrible.
Every time.
They are just not good in those jerseys. Again, give credit to Detroit. They're, I think, the better team. But Tampa Bay's had a good start to the
They
season.
have.
But
Baker
this
Mayfield is kind of cooling off.
this was a rough game for them at home.
I think it was Baker's worst game of the year. As far as their offense goes, they just didn't know what to do with the ball.
Well, let's see. What did they do? I mean, Baker, no touchdowns and interceptions, still had 200 yards.
I don't think
they
they had
didn't
a
really
touchdown.
run the ball great, less than 50 yards rushing. And then Godwin, Evans, your two top receivers, not anything. Godwin had 77 yards, but Evans under 50, just not anything.
We were just talking about Godwin too, actually.
So this may have been one of his better games if we
Yeah, click his name.
click on him here. Actually, last week was his best game, but
Yeah.
this was the second. So he's getting a little bit more production the last couple weeks.
Yeah, the last couple games. didn't get
But
it.
still, not Tampa Bay just didn't.
They just didn't look good this game. Their offense wasn't working.
They didn't look-
they couldn't
yeah,
move
yeah.
the ball.
But again,
I
give credit to
believe
Detroit.
Most of their
We talked about Detroit's offense, but how about Detroit's defense too? Detroit's defense is looking just as good, so we got to give them some credit as well.
I mean, look at this.
Yeah, punt, interception, punt, field goal, punt. It's all
Missed
2 field goals,
yeah,
punts,
and then punts.
and a turnover
And
down to the
turnovers,
last. So
yeah.
just not
Their offense just wasn't moving the ball.
And so you also again got to give credit to Detroit, their defense, and Detroit as a team just have looked incredible too.
They have.
So.
They've definitely looked like one of the top 5 teams in the league for sure.
So good for Detroit.
Yeah, I'm
Next
proud of them.
game, the Rams and Cardinals.
Cooper Kupp still looking great.
Cooper Kupp
He's
coming
come
back.
back from injury, and he has
not
phenomenal.
missed a beat. Yeah.
I mean, you'd think he's in mid-season form, and it's
so-
technically his second game.
Yeah.
I mean, he's looked fantastic.
And
It kind of sucks for the rookie.
Puka Nacua.
Nacua.
Yeah, because I believe this was his worst.
But the thing is,
Game.
when you have
you got
to
cut
pick
back, so-
between a rookie and
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp,
If you
you're
look at
picking Cooper
look at
Kupp.
Nakua's game log, this was by far his worst.
Yeah.
Game. But again, now that you got Cooper Kupp back in the lineup, your production is going to go
Yeah.
down.
Well, and it's not like Nakua had necessarily a bad game. He just
No,
didn't get
he
many
just didn't-
targets. He didn't.
But he
get
had
the
such a phenomenal start.
Oh yeah, he's still a great receiver.
And
He's
what's-
still a great option on the
Again,
team.
we both picked the Rams to win this game. It's strange because the Rams 3-3, not a great start, but not a bad start. But the weird thing about the Cardinals is we thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the league, but they've actually played better than that. But their record still
record
shows
is
that
the
they're one
worst
of the
in the
worst
league, yeah.
in the league. So 1-5.
Although this game they definitely
played
a bad
bad.
team. I
But-
don't think they had a touchdown.
But the thing is I think even though the Rams have had a great start, 3-3,
I think they can still make the playoffs.
I think they're starting to come together. Now you got Cooper Kupp back. They still
Cooper
got
Kupp being gone really hurt them. Puka Nacua stepped up, which helped
Yes.
a lot.
And they still didn't
but
play terrible.
It's still not the same as having Cooper Kupp.
But if you're healthy as the Rams, you still have a shot definitely
100%.
of making the playoffs. And it's obviously we knew the Cardinals weren't going to be great this year. That we know it's a rebuilding team. So we obviously Cardinals fans knew that coming into the season. But a divisional game here, we expected the Rams to win. They won. But I think the biggest takeaway is again, like you said, now that you got your team back, especially Cooper Kupp back.
Yeah. When you have Cooper Kupp, who you could argue he's the best receiver
Yeah.
in the league, that is huge for a team to have that. Not only you're talking like, I guess emotionally, if that's what the wording you want to use, just having that in the clubhouse, or I guess that's football or
baseball, locker room,
clubhouse, locker room. Just having his presence there and having him on the field brings such a confidence to the team.
Yeah, I agree. It's not only a emotional and moral support knowing he's there, but then also just his knowledge of the game and also his obviously just his abilities. I mean,
his ability. He's one of the best receivers in the league. Has been for a while.
We'll see how the rest of the season goes for the Rams, but right now, obviously this is a game they should have won and did, but 3-3, we'll see if they can make a run at the playoffs
we'll see
or
if
not.
they keep playing how they have been. They did lose last week but that was to the Eagles.
Yeah.
The Eagles are a good team. That was the one they had Cooper Kupp back. I don't think they really played bad that game.
No.
I think they just were playing a good
And
team.
speaking of the Eagles, I believe that's the next game we have to talk about is the Eagles
It was an
and
ugly
Jets.
game.
This was the worst game that the Eagles played, but mind you, the Jets 3-3 have not been great. Mainly that's been their offense. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers out, but let's talk about the Jets. We knew the Jets defense was going to be good, but I heard I saw something about Robert Saleh, the Jets coach, talking about this was a difficult start of the season for the Jets. They played the Bills, they played the Cowboys,
Yeah.
the Chiefs, the Eagles.
Very good defenses. Or offenses.
And really, they've made you got Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, and now Jalen Hurts.
Their easiest game was the Patriots, which
And
they
the
did
Broncos.
lose, and the Broncos, but they won that game. But if you look at the point totals, they haven't been giving up a ton of points, whereas some of these other teams, look at what these other teams were scoring.
You look at the first game. Josh Allen, 3 interceptions and a fumble. What did they do against Dak Prescott?
I think Dak Prescott kind of ate him alive.
Okay, yeah, that's true. But that was probably their worst game
That
of
was
the year.
definitely their worst
That was
game.
in Dallas.
They did lose to the Patriots.
They did lose to the Patriots, but what did their defense do? Actually, they didn't.
But the thing is, they're not giving up a ton of points. They're not letting teams walk
Yeah.
all over them.
Okay,
which everyone expected them to kind of just do.
Well,
that.
and against the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes had 2 interceptions. Really could have been 4, and then Jalen Hurts had 3. So against Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes, they've made those guys not look so great. And even the games where they haven't turned the ball over, as you mentioned, their defense has kept them in these games 3-3.
Because their offense certainly is not.
No.
Although Zach Wilson in this
looked
game
bad.
didn't look bad. Didn't have any picks, but he didn't have any touchdowns, a little under 200 yards. He's actually looked pretty decent. I seen a meme, what was it? It was something about when they played the Chiefs, he looked over at like
Donna Kelsey, and ever since then, he's outplayed Mahomes.
Yeah.
He's killed the Broncos and then beat the
that's funny. Something stupid.
Yeah, but no, I think
The Eagles did just look bad.
well, the Eagles I believe had 14 at half. I don't think they scored at all in the second half. They had 14 at halftime and went scoreless in the second half.
You'd be right.
So that's
not
good.
When you're looking at a team like the Eagles, or when you are a team like the Eagles, and you
to
look
have
at a
half.
game like this, you can't do that.
No.
You can't have a second half where you don't score,
Well-
especially against a team like the Jets. If you can't do that against the Jets, what are you going to do when you're playing like the Chiefs?
Yeah, and I say that, and the Bills, I know, we'll get to that in that game next,
Yeah.
but we went 3 quarters, I think, without scoring, and still ended up winning. But
Yeah, like-
yeah, which we'll get to that next. But yeah,
This was an ugly game for the Eagles.
and it
Very
was, but
ugly.
it was weird because obviously it was an ugly game for the Bills, ugly game for the Chiefs, ugly game for the 49ers. I mean, a lot of the top teams in the league
Yeah.
played ugly games this week, but
The 49ers kind of have an excuse when it comes to injuries.
little bit.
They definitely,
and the Browns' defense is good too. And again, the Jets' defense is it's
But
just
the thing is, the Eagles, though, they did just play an ugly game.
they did.
Definitely, the Jets having a good
Mm-hmm.
defense didn't help them any. But the Eagles are better than that. To not
Yeah,
score a
yeah,
single point
you're
in
right,
the
you're
second
right.
half, they should have done more.
And so, but you got to give credit to the weird outcome, but got to give credit. As I think we both obviously picked the Eagles in this game, but got to give credit to the Jets. They're 3-3. Again,
I mean,
another
I
one of those
expected
3-3.
them to go better, but
Well-
they lost Rodgers, which is a
Well,
big
even
deal.
with Rodgers too, if you looked at their this beginning of the season, their schedule was so hard that I think I heard someone say that even before they lost Rodgers, they were saying if they could get out of this 3-3, they're in a decent spot.
Well, the thing
You know,
is,
so-
the thing that would have helped them, the thing that hurt them a lot with Rodgers being injured is that it was the only thing anyone talked about.
Yeah, it was their hope.
It
basically,
was
this
basically
season.
like, the
Well-
thing they were most excited about this season just got thrown out the
and
window
they
immediately.
They knew they had a good defense
Mm-hmm.
because they did last year, which is why their offense was kind of their weak point, which is why they went out and did what they did, getting Rodgers and some of those other weapons. And so their defense has obviously helped them win these games, but to lose Rodgers and that so early, that definitely
I
is
would say
unfortunate.
right now for them to be 3-3 after 6 games, especially with the schedule they had and all the crap that happened at the beginning of the season with Rodgers,
Actually, they're in a
they
good spot.
should be happy
Yeah,
with where they're at.
I agree.
They should definitely be happy.
They're
with
in a pretty good spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so now to the Sunday night game, my team, the Bills, in a terrible
That
low
was
scoring.
ugly.
It was. And now, again, we come back from London. We're at home Sunday night. I was expecting us to play better. We have, going into this game, we had the most sacks, and the Giants had given up some of the most sacks. But it just did not go, the game did not go the way I hoped or expected.
Yeah, let's take a
Get like
look.
It
3
was hard to
sacks.
watch,
4.
It was 3
Now-
3 sacks.
which is still, I mean, that's not bad. But I'll
But
say this.
against the Giants, who've
But
given
I'll-
up like double-digit
but
sacks
I'll say
multiple
this.
times.
Tyrod Taylor is a better quarterback than Daniel Jones.
Oh, 100%.
And so
and they're
Daniel
paying
Jones
Daniel Jones like
got way
$40 million a
overpaid.
year.
And I think part of the reason why they were getting so much sacks is like Tyrod Taylor's more mobile. He was
Yeah.
evading and getting out of the pocket quicker and avoiding those potential sacks and making some pretty good plays.
Jones
And-
is just not a good QB,
No.
and I will never understand why they paid him what they did.
And so you got Tyrod Taylor. Actually, I think helped the Giants. This may actually, I don't know how they're going to move forward, but this may be a bright spot for the Giants. Because
But you can't afford to sit someone you're paying $40 million
And as a
year.
Bills fan, obviously we had Tyrod as our starter for a couple years. He's not the best QB, but he's got experience as a veteran quarterback, and he's seen things, and he's more of a game. He's not a crazy talent, but he's
You're not going to win games because of his arms, but you're not going to lose.
But he's
going to
keep you in games, yes.
You're not going to lose games because of him either.
So he definitely played good enough to keep the Giants in the. Barkley coming back, that helped. He was out the last couple weeks
having
too.
Saquon Barkley, having a running back as physical as he is,
because he's one of the best
huge.
running backs in the league. He's just as not on a good team, and he's also been in and out with injuries.
Now this game he wasn't very efficient. 24 attempts, only 93 yards. That's not the greatest. Not bad.
Yeah.
But he could certainly do better. It's not very Saquon Barkley-like.
So now if we switch to the Bills, they started off slow. It's weird. We have no excuse now back at home. We started off very slow, kind of like we did last week against Jacksonville.
14 points
in the fourth. Yeah, we went the first three. Funny thing is, we went the first 3 quarters without scoring, and then I think it was the first play of the fourth quarter. We scored a touchdown. But it was just an ugly game. I know a lot of people watching it were probably, even as, I was getting frustrated.
Well, I remember seeing the stats. I didn't watch this game, but I was sitting there watching it, and I seen it pop up to halftime, and it was 6-0, and I was laughing.
And here's another thing that a lot of people, they know, but we got to discuss a little bit, is Brian Daboll, the head coach of the Giants, was our offensive coordinator a couple years prior, for I don't know how, several years. So he kind of built our offense in a way. And now he's on the opposite side. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, because obviously
we're kind of familiar with the way you guys play.
Yes, their defense played us well, and it's
but the thing is, that many years later, it's like everybody's seen you play, so they're kind of familiar with it anyway.
It's only been 2. Well, this was his first year in New York was last year, so this is the second year. But I don't know. It was an ugly game, and the Giants, in a way, should have they lost this game. If you
they had an opportunity
right before halftime, they were right there on the goal line. Called, I think Tyrod audible to a run play. They got stopped and they had no timeouts left. Ran out of time. Did not get any points.
Yeah, they
and then
should. That's how you can tell they're not a good team, is because of things like that. They didn't close that. They didn't close it out when they should have in the red zone. And just silly mistakes.
Well, they have some talent. Obviously, the Bills didn't play good at all. But then also, you got that, and at the end of the game, they got down there. I know there was a questionable. Should have, even as a Bills fan, I think it should have been a PI, pass interference, and gave the Giants another chance. They didn't get the call, got stopped. So twice they got down there to the goal line, could not score. Even if you get 2 field goals out of that, you win, or you score at least 1 touchdown, you win. So as a Bills fan, not a good game, not happy about it. Got to give credit to the Giants. And again, I think Tyrod, not a great game, but Daniel Jones,
Jones is so bad. I don't understand. No one thought he was good.
Yeah, we'll see. Last year was his best year, and it was a surprising year. And they gave him that and it's just not been good.
But the thing is, it wasn't like it was an insane year. It wasn't like he had 4,000 yards or anything like that.
It was just good for him, and the team did good. They made the playoffs.
I don't know if I'd say they played great,
but 1-5, not a great record for the Giants. We'll see how they're not going to make the playoffs this year. But how are they going to look coming off this game? We'll see. When's Daniel Jones going to get back? We'll see. But as for the Bills, this is 2 weeks now where we've not
looked great.
So we got New England next week, which we should be another win, but we gotta get.
This was supposed.
But we gotta.
Well, you guys were favored by 15 points, and you didn't even score.
That's what I'm saying.
Points.
I was expecting. So we gotta get it together. And I don't know what it is that obviously some defensive injuries have hurt us. Obviously, it was last week against Jacksonville. We had a couple key. Well, and the week before, and against Miami, we had a couple key defensive guys. We lost, but offensively, though, at times Josh Allen still looks great, and he didn't have a terrible stat line. But the fact that we're punting this much and going 3 and out this much is not
with an offense like you guys have. It should never happen.
Yeah,
you should. I get it happens. Having 3 and outs, it happens. It is what it is. It is how football works.
Yeah,
you should not have as many as you have had with the offense that
especially
you guys
the offense we're accustomed to.
And what we know, what we know you guys are capable of.
So, but the thing is, I'll say we still got the win, even though I know a lot of people say we probably shouldn't have. Even as a Bills fan, it was bad, and we probably shouldn't have. But I'll say this: I'd rather, even though it's hard to watch, I'd rather this happen during this part of the season and get it together. against teams that we should be anyways, like the Giants and then the Patriots.
Versus stuff like the end of the season.
Or the
Chiefs,
playoffs like last
whatever,
year
yeah.
when we kind of did this. And you can't do that in the playoffs.
No.
You can afford it maybe now against teams that...
If you're going to do it, the beginning of the season is the time to do it.
We just got to get it together. It's unfortunate, but if this is gonna happen, I'd rather it happen now. But yeah, we can't have this happen in the playoffs again like last year because we saw what happened last year, and we're a better team than that.
100%.
So unfortunate, we got the win, but there's a lot of
would have
things
liked
that we
to win a different way.
I hate winning games, especially against a team like the Giants. But any game, even if it was a team like the Chiefs, I hate winning close games that come down to maybe questionable calls and things that. I just don't like that. I like blowing teams out, and
that's definitely. I think everyone likes that.
But
so.
In the NFL, as we saw most of these games, even some of the best teams, you're gonna have
ugly
close
games
that you either barely win or even just ugly bad performances. That was one of them. The fact that we got the win, I guess, is it's still a win. So
it's a win.
I
Come to the end of the season, nobody's
as a Bills fan, I could keep going on, but we should probably move on. That's all I gotta say, I guess, about that. But
and then the final game is the Monday game. That'd be Cowboys Chargers, I believe.
I think we both picked the Chargers.
The Chargers.
Cowboys coming off an ugly loss last week to the 49ers on the road. Have to go back to California, and the Chargers are another one of those teams that I think I picked as a wild card team. They're a better team than their record, I think, but they
definitely are.
They've been in a lot of close games. They've not been able to win.
I don't think it helped them that Eckler was out just for four games to start the season.
Well, and now Mike Williams, I believe, is one of the receivers.
Now Eckler, I think, made a whole lot more. Will make more of an impact than Williams did. But
yeah, because you still got Keenan Allen. Palmer had a good night.
You still have good receivers.
Yeah.
Their backup running back, I don't even remember who he was.
Yeah, I don't even. Yeah.
Kelly?
Is this Kelly?
Was it? That sounds right. Yeah, I don't know if he was their backup. He is.
Yeah,
he was
Kelly.
definitely their one. Yeah,
Joshua
so Kelly
Kelly
was there.
It was it was actually a fairly entertaining game though. Good defensive game, but not a lot of turnovers. Obviously, that one interception Herbert threw was to end the game.
Mm-hmm.
But these were two good teams that haven't quite put it all together yet. Mm-hmm. Good win for Dallas, I guess, especially considering you're on the road again and you had a bad performance the week before to come back and get a win. But it was an interesting game, not a high-scoring game, but two, I would say, pretty evenly matched teams, and Dallas able to come out the win. But let's talk about the biggest story of the night.
Of the week.
Yeah, was that lady in the crowd for that Chargers fan. Man.
That Asian lady, she got on the Pat McAfee show.
I mean, she
was like,
she's got
trying to give herself a stroke with what she was doing. I don't know.
I mean, I know I get into the games when I watch the Bills, but she was
into it.
She was into that game, man. And
I definitely think something like this, if you're a Chargers fan, I wouldn't let it get to you. If it goes the other way, both teams are 3-3.
Yeah.
Now 4-2.
Well, and the
2-3.
good thing,
it's early in the season.
While it's a tough loss at home,
they didn't necessarily play bad.
No, and it's not like the Cowboys are an NFC team, you're an AFC team, so it's not gonna
no playoff
necessarily
implications other than
it could, but not
the record.
Not huge.
Yeah,
as far as you know what I'm saying.
It's just a record thing. It's not.
So
there's no
the Chargers are a good team, but you got to find ways just to win some of these close games. Yeah, that's the thing.
Well,
for the Chargers.
Let's take a look here at the plays. I mean, let's go back here. Let's go to the end here. I mean, fourth quarter, Chargers punted it. Then they got a touchdown. They brought it within.
Because I believe they punted it but on that punt they got, I think the Cowboys fumbled or touched it, and the Chargers recovered. Were able to convert that into a touchdown. But then the Dallas got the ball back field goal, and then they just
Well, the problem was you throw a pick at the end of the game on what would be a game-winning drive.
Yeah.
That kills you. You can't do that.
Well, and Dallas's defense is obviously pretty good. But Herbert also, he's been. I think it was his. They said it was left.
You can tell he's a young quarterback.
Yeah, and his left hand, I believe he had I think it broken. Obviously, it's your non-throwing hand, but still, any sort of injury.
Having anything off, Herbert
at times is I'm pretty high on Herbert. I think he's a great quarterback. He's young still, as you mentioned. The thing is, this Chargers team is good because their defense is good too. It's
They
just
definitely. I expected their record. To
they just
got
got to put it together, and
They do.
it's sad because as good as this Chargers team since Herbert's been in there's looked at times, they've only made it to the playoffs once, which was last year, and they lost in the wild card and lost to the Jaguars. So they've only made it to the playoffs once and lost. So
Yeah, honestly, if they don't step it up and play better this year, I don't think it's the end of the world this year. But if they
No.
do it again next year, it's definitely a sign things are going to have to change.
It's-
You're going to have to bring in
it's
something. Something's going to have to be different.
it's just tough because you have another thing that's held them back too is the Chiefs are in their division. So
Yeah, and one of the best teams.
you
in the
know
league.
that definitely doesn't help. But
The thing they've got going for them, they have a good young quarterback. Austin Eckler is one of
Good
the best
running back,
running
yeah.
backs in the league, if not the best.
you have
in
a
the
good
league.
receiving core when healthy.
Yeah.
And the defense is good. I mean, you got Khalil Mack and Joey
They
Bosa.
just need to put it together. That's just
I
the
believe
biggest thing.
They have Asante Samuel Jr. right in the second. I mean, so yeah, you just got to put it
They
together.
just got to put it together. You have all the pieces. You've got to figure something out. Well, you might not have all the pieces, but you have a lot of the pieces.
Enough
you need
pieces to at least
be
be
a
a
good
playoff
team. Yeah.
But the year before they barely missed the playoffs because it was that crazy game against the Raiders that was one of the best games of the year. But so they're always
They're
in the
always
mix.
there, but
But
they
think about
have
it.
to make that next step.
If they win games like this, that could be the
That
difference.
could be the difference.
So that's the thing is if you just got to win
you
these
have
games.
to be able to put it together in these close games, especially on those final drives. That pick that he threw, Herbert threw there at the end. You can't afford to do that if you're
No.
going to be what people are expecting him to be, which is another generational QB. You've got to be better than that.
And it's just sad. Obviously, I'm not a Chargers fan, but like, even back when they had Phillip Rivers, they had and Antonio Gates and LaDainian Tomlinson, they had good players, good team. They could never put it together.
They never put it together.
They had some playoff teams here and there, but they always were never. Even though they were good, they were never as good as the
as good as
Patriots,
yeah.
Colts back in that day, Steelers,
Mm-hmm.
and now you got the Bills, Chiefs. You know, some of the other.
They were never on that upper echelon.
No.
They were
They're
always
close,
in the middle.
But they're always
Yeah.
they just can't get there.
The top of the middle.
Which is sad if you're a Chargers fan because you're so close but yet so far away at a lot
unfortunate.
of times. So, but that ends the week. All the games this week. The two teams that had a bye were Packers and Steelers. So,
Yep.
but we'll get into them in our prediction for the next week.
Yes, next week, week 7.
This Thursday night
We got Jacksonville at the Saints.
at the Saints. That should be interesting. As we talked about, Jacksonville starting to look good. New Orleans not looked as good as we thought, but you
They
never
haven't
know.
looked bad.
No, they haven't looked
bad.
terrible. That's in New Orleans. What are we going to get out of New Orleans this
That's
week?
the question. Are they going to finally put it together and play how people were kind of expecting them to play, or are they going to have another mid-tier performance? I'm gonna go Jaguars here. I think
Yeah,
Jaguars are.
I'm gonna
winning.
go Jaguars.
They're
Just
going to be on a roll from the
based
wins they've
off
been
of the
getting.
way that they've looked the last couple weeks. Obviously, New Orleans looked great against New England, but that's New England.
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville, I think, is the now, mind you, I think this could be close and go either way. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go Jacksonville too. Should be interesting to see what happens here, though. But yes, Jacksonville.
Next game, we start the Sunday afternoon games. We've got Washington at the Giants. As I know I said I wasn't going to pick Washington anymore, but I got to pick Washington. The Giants are just so bad.
Yeah, I think Washington's the better team, and I will. It's at the Giants.
At Giants.
It's a divisional game, so anything can happen. The Giants looked. I mean, they competed against us, the Bills, last week. Another question is Tyrod going to continue to play, or will Daniel Jones be back? That'll be interesting.
I think they're gonna. I think just because of how much they're playing, they're gonna play. They're gonna play Jones.
But we'll see. We could see the Giants. It depends. I wouldn't be surprised actually if the Giants somehow find a way to win. Just one of those games that
It's a divisional game.
Yes, divisional,
especially in the
as we talk-
NFC
yeah.
East. NFC East is always one of those divisions where you never know who's gonna
yeah,
win.
you just never know. And
Something to look for in this game. Sacks. Washington has a phenomenal D line.
Yeah.
Secondary is not great
well,
at all.
and I thought
but the
that was
D-line
and
is
I
so
thought that was
good.
going to be a big factor against the Bills this last week, and it really
I
wasn't.
think Tyrod
So,
Taylor was the difference
yeah,
there.
I do too. I really do too, and that's why I say it's if he's going to play or not could be.
Yeah,
know,
that'd be a big difference.
I don't know
think
who-
I think if Tyrod Taylor plays, it will be a closer game than if Jones plays.
And I'll say this: if Jones does come back and they look terrible, I know they're paying him a lot, but I don't know. I just it's not a good situation right now for the Giants.
It's
I do
not.
think Washington's the better team, so for that, it could go either way. But I'm gonna go Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Washington's the better
There we
team.
go. I mean, come on. Next is the Lions at the Ravens.
This will be interesting too.
This will be a good game.
I'm actually excited for this one. Because
I am excited to see how this goes. I don't think Baltimore is going to play bad by any means at all.
No.
I think they're a very good team, but I'm gonna have to go Detroit.
Yeah, and I think this game is in Baltimore. If I remember it, the last
And it's supposed to rain.
Yeah.
It's supposed to rain this game.
the
So.
last time that they played, I believe, was that day we were together, and was it Justin Tucker hit that
Yeah, that
record-breaking
super long,
game-winning,
like, whatever,
and that was
68-yard field goal.
before the Lions were really like they are now.
Yeah,
you know,
they weren't even.
and that was a
good.
competitive game, and it took the Ravens to get a record-breaking field goal to win that game in Detroit. This time I was in
Detroit's
Baltimore.
a phenomenal team this
But
year.
Detroit's looking good. Ravens are obviously good in their own right too, but I think I'm picking Detroit as well. I think the Ravens as the 4-2, they've looked good, but I just think Detroit's the better
Detroit's
team.
just
The
looked
Detroit's-
so good. They're 5-1.
Yeah.
I mean, they technically are tied for the best record in the NFL.
Yeah. And so,
So,
I'm going Detroit. It
100%
should be. It's
Detroit.
going to be an interesting game though, but we'll see what happens.
Next game, Vegas, Chicago.
These are two teams that you picked to be in the
teams that
wild
I
card
picked
that
to be
haven't
in the wild
looked
card.
that great.
The Raiders haven't looked bad.
No, the Raiders.
Bears have looked horrible, especially now. I don't know if Fields is going to play or not.
Yeah, that's another question.
With Fields being questionable, I know it's at Chicago, but with him being questionable and the way the Raiders have been playing here as of late, I'm going Raiders.
Yeah, I picked the Bears last. We both picked the Bears last week.
Regret.
Right in that high of the win the week before. But with Fields out, Vegas hasn't looked anything great, but I think they're just the better team. They have won the last couple games.
Yep.
So I'm gonna go Vegas as well.
Yep.
Chicago's still on that struggle bus a little bit.
It's rough. Poor guys. Thing is, what are they going to do if they do play horrible? Do you draft a new guy and trade Fields?
Well, because
who
with
hasn't
the
been bad,
they have the Panthers pick, who are currently the worst record in the league, and
then they will
could-
have the number 2 pick.
They could get the top 2 picks. So then what do you
What
do?
do you do?
Yeah,
Do you
that'll be
trade-
interesting.
Trade away so somebody else can get him or what? But,
I don't know.
We'll talk about that
Yeah.
another time. Next is the Browns Colts. Another what I think is going to be an interesting game.
AFC matchup in Indianapolis. Now I'm gonna go Cleveland though, just because. Now I don't know if Deshaun Watson's gonna be back or not, but that defense. And again, Gardner Minshew coming off a game where he didn't look the best. I just think Cleveland's defense is going to be the difference. And so it could go either way, but I'm going to go Cleveland.
Yeah, knowing how off and on Minshew is, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough for me to pick here, just because being at Indianapolis, they have a pretty big home atmosphere, especially with the way Minshew plays. I know he's off and on.
Yeah.
I want to pick the Browns, but something's just telling me I think the Colts are winning this.
Okay. Yeah, I picked the Browns, but I could see it going either way.
It's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means.
No.
I'm going Colts though, just because I think Minshew, because I believe he's still playing. I don't think.
No, yeah, because I think
out
Richardson's
for a
out
couple
for
weeks. He's in
the
the
year.
IR.
I think now.
Oh, is he? Did they actually say that?
I think yeah.
Oh, well,
So
well, I believe I called that.
In it for the long haul.
Yeah, getting paid to do nothing. That's the
so
job I have.
yeah, I think it's Minshew's. team
Minshew's
now.
it for the rest of the year.
So yeah, we'll see how that game goes. But I'm
We'll
going
see.
Browns. You're going Colts.
He's just got a nice mustache.
Yeah.
so I got to pick him. Next is
Buffalo
Bills,
at
you
New
guys. I'm going New England. No, I'm not. New England sucks. They're horrible. I think they're going to win 3 games all year.
No, I obviously as a Bills fan going Bills. We should win this game.
Going Bills. Although you should have. I mean,
Yeah,
you almost
I-
lost last.
I think we'll
week.
win no matter what. I just think I'm interested to see what Bills team shows up
Yeah.
though. This is a divisional game. New England, obviously a team that
You guys don't really like very
no.
much.
So where it's in New England? Can we go in there and let's switch this thing around again and start playing like we know we can. Either way, we should win this game. New England's just terrible. I'm more curious. I think we're gonna win. I'm just more curious to see how good we play. You know, I don't know. I just hope we play better than we played the last couple
you
weeks.
can't play much worse than you have been. So I'm definitely going Bills though. Next game, Atlanta, Tampa Bay. Both teams coming off of a loss. It's
Yeah.
at Tampa Bay.
Divisional game there too.
It's another tough one.
And this could be important too for
Could have playoff implications again?
yeah, how the division ends up turning out.
Because both of these teams have similar records.
Yeah, similar records in a division that is going. I mean, the Panthers are not going to win a division, and then the
Obviously.
Saints are in that division. So you got they're
close.
right in there too. So, in Tampa Bay, can they get a bounce back from their loss against Detroit, and then Atlanta losing to
It's gonna be a
This
gonna
is
be
an
a close
interesting
one.
game.
If I had to pick here between the two, I think they're both fairly evenly matched. I'm not real high on Atlanta this year. I'm gonna have to go Tampa Bay.
I think I'm actually gonna go Atlanta just because. I don't know. I think they both. I don't know. I think they're evenly matched too. I just think, even though they both lost last week, Atlanta looked better. Even though I know Atlanta played the Commanders and Tampa Bay played the Lions, who have looked really good. It should be an interesting game. I don't know what it is, but something's just telling me Atlanta. So
Atlanta's calling to you.
I don't know, but I'm going Atlanta.
Yeah. Next we got Pittsburgh, who's just coming off the bye, versus the Rams.
Interesting game here too, and in LA. I think what to watch here is the Rams offense versus the the Steelers defense. Obviously, we know Pittsburgh's offense has had some struggles this year. Now, what are they going to look like coming off of a bye? Should be an interesting game, but I just think the only way Pittsburgh I think is going to stay in this game is if their defense plays really good.
Yep.
But I'm going Los Angeles.
I'm going Rams as well until Kenny Pickett can prove. Until he plays basically, if he doesn't play how he did in the preseason,
Yeah.
they're not going to get anywhere.
And obviously the Rams
Having Cup back,
yeah.
Puka Nacua playing as good as he is, the Rams are the much better team here. I'm going Rams.
Yeah,
Especially at home.
at home.
I mean-
And then again, Pittsburgh's offense hasn't looked great. You got to face Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
It just I'm
And
going
Pittsburgh
Rams.
has not been looking good this year. Rams all the way
No.
for sure. So next game, Cardinals, Seahawks.
in Seattle. I'm going
Seahawks. I don't even think that's a question. I mean, even though
They came-
Arizona's played better
Yeah.
than their record,
and
they're
it's
still
it's a divisional game. Seahawks coming off of a loss, but I just think Seattle's a
There's
better
no
team
way.
at home. Yeah.
yeah, definitely Seahawks. Next, the other team that was on bye, Green
Packers.
Bay versus Denver.
And Denver. I'm just gonna. I don't think Green Bay's playing anything great this year. And Denver at times has looked good considering their record's so bad, and they're playing at home. But I'm gonna go great. I just until Denver proves they
Denver
can
has
win.
not proved anything. However, I'm feeling upset. I'm feeling this is the upset game.
Okay.
I'm going Denver.
Honestly, I would not be surprised if
Just
Denver won.
just because it's at home, and I know Denver fans can be crazy.
but, yeah, they need something.
Yeah, so I'm going Denver. And not Kevin Love. That's basketball. Jordan Love or whatever his name is.
Like I said, Green Bay hasn't looked great, but at times they've looked good. Speaking of basketball, though, that's really the only thing Denver's had to cheer for is the Nuggets because the Broncos. Yeah, they're probably looking forward to the NBA season starting.
Yeah.
again here.
I don't know if Jokic is though. He just wants to.
Yeah,
he just wants the racehorses or whatever it
Yeah,
is he
Nikola
does.
Jokic, I think he's probably
It's a
the one that's the
job.
most
I'm on
mad about
vacation.
NBA season coming back.
I just want to go home.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Hey, we'll talk more about that later once football's
once
over.
football's
But
over.
that's
That's so funny.
yeah.
Next up, Chargers, Chiefs. I mean, I'm going Chiefs. I don't think the Chargers.
It's another one of those teams that the Chargers always play the Chiefs close. But the funny thing is the Chargers always find ways to lose games, and the Chiefs always find ways to win games. It's in Kansas City. I think it could be close, and I think it will be close. But yeah, until the Chargers prove they can win these
gotta pick
games,
Chiefs.
I got to go Kansas City. As much as I don't like Kansas City, yeah, Kansas City is my pick. And this should be an interesting
Yeah,
game here.
next one is could be an NFC Championship matchup.
Well, no, the Miami's in the AFC. So
Aren't they? Oh my gosh,
yeah,
I was thinking
they're in our
that.
division.
Oh, I'm being dumb. I don't know what I was thinking.
No, but either way, it's a big game.
Either way, big game could be a Super
Sunday
Bowl
night
matchup.
game. You got, as I mentioned earlier, two Bama quarterbacks, Tua Tagovailoa versus Jalen Hurts. two 5-1 teams. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting in
I'll-
Philadelphia.
I'm thinking just because, both teams have offense. We know that. Miami, I think, definitely has a better offense. But given that it's at Philadelphia and Philadelphia's defense,
That's what I was gonna say. The side of the ball to watch is Miami's offense versus Philadelphia's defense, because while they both have good offenses, I think Philadelphia's got the better defense, but I think Miami's got a little bit better offense. So how is that gonna play? I just think,
I think it's going to be a tight game, but I'm going Philadelphia.
yeah, and I agree. I think it's gonna be close in Philadelphia. That may give them an advantage, but I think I'm leaning Miami just because.
Of how good their offense
Yes,
is.
I just don't.
Even though the Phillies' defense is good,
Yes.
it's not like they've been.
Exactly right. I think
Phenomenal.
Philadelphia, their offense is good, but they haven't been great this year. And Miami, I just don't know. I think Miami's going to score too many points that I don't think Philadelphia's offense is going to be able to keep up. As good as Philadelphia's defense is, I don't know. There's something that's telling me that I just think Miami's going to win. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
That'll be a fun one to watch.
I'm going Miami.
Yeah, and could be a Super Bowl matchup.
Yeah, that could be a Super Bowl matchup. Yeah.
Very well could be. Next game, Niners-Vikings.
Yeah, I'm going.
Coming off the loss, the Niners are just a better team. Minnesota's
Yeah,
just not that
Niners
good.
are a better team. It's in Minnesota. Minnesota's coming off of a win. Now it was an ugly win against the Bears. Niners
And
coming
not
off a
having-
loss.
Not having Jefferson.
But yeah, you
still.
don't have Jefferson. I don't think the Niners' injuries that they had this past week was anything.
That's going to affect them long term.
Yeah, and I don't know who's going to come back or
Mm-hmm.
not. But either way, yeah, Niners better team. I'm going Niners
100% Niners.
here too. So that wraps out.
Man, there's a
wraps
lot
up
of bye
a lot of
weeks
bye
next
weeks this week.
My fantasy team was feeling it. I don't even have a backup QB. I have to drop somebody.
Yeah.
But Bengals definitely need a rest week. They're going to appreciate that. Other than that, I don't think too many of these bye weeks are going to help or hurt anybody. I think the Bengals need one just because I think Joe
Yeah.
Burrow needs a break.
Now the biggest thing is obviously for fantasy you gotta, there's a lot of bye weeks, gotta check your lineups. But other than that, this is the week we got the least amount of games due to all the bye weeks. But there's a couple good ones in there. I think the games to watch definitely Miami, Philadelphia, Chargers, Chiefs,
And the Atlanta Tampa big game will be a good one.
and also Detroit, Baltimore. I think those are the
Yeah.
four main ones that kind of stand out to me. But should be another interesting week, as hard to predict as this last week, as we saw. You never know what's going to happen in any
I also
given
think
week in the NFL.
It just helps that we're very bad at this prediction thing.
We are, but I don't know if anyone
At
really
this
is.
point, nobody expected it to be the way it is. So I think 49ers are probably the closest to. But even that, their loss last week.
Yeah,
I mean,
Buffalo looked bad. The Philadelphia came off a loss.
Chiefs lost.
Chiefs have won their last. Well, they only lost the first game of the year, but even their wins have not looked anything great.
Not very Chiefs-like.
So we'll see what happens this week. As that's kind of, I think we went over everything. That
Yep,
kinda,
I think that about wraps it up for this week. Hopefully it's a big bye week, not as much to talk about next week. I'm sure we'll still go way over like normal. But,
Yeah.
that's okay. So I suppose we'll see you all next week after we watch some good football this weekend. So, see ya.